Happy Halloween. This is a day in which people dress in scary costumes, and there are few things scarier to UUs than seeing a minister wearing a robe. But for today, I decided to put on my long black gown. There is a story of a UU who attended her first high mass. The priest came down the aisle in a resplendent white robe. He wore a red stole embroidered with a golden thread. He swung a brass censer with incense burning. The UU stopped the priest and said, "Your dress is lovely, but your purse is on fire." Why do ministers dress in drag? It seems that those traditions that do not allow women to be ministers are the most likely to dress their priests in drag. Now, the robe has its roots as an academic gown, a medieval house coat for those who went to the hallowed halls of learning. The stone cathedrals were cold and drafty. All academics wore them. It was a symbol of strength and authority, separating the educated from the ignorant masses. Professors at universities used to wear their robes all the time. Now they wear them only at graduation ceremonies. Religion has been the last to shed this vestige of the past, which makes sense because religious tends to look backwards to the past for its authority, whereas science often tests the past in order to find better theories for the future. The modern symbol or robe of science is the white lab coat. That is the symbol of authority now. Some doctors find that patients follow directions better when the doctor is wearing the white coat. But that symbol of authority has its downside. People's blood pressure seems to go up in presence of the white coat. Who we are is ultimately determined by who we are inside, but our clothing indicates who we are to others. Society runs smoothly if we can predict other people's behavior by how they're dressed. But the cues have become confused. We live in a drag society. The rules change, especially when it comes to gender. Gender roles used to be very rigid. Only men were allowed to wear academic gowns. Perhaps when women were allowed to wear them, they lost status and then became less popular. And men chose to wear a suit and tie to indicate their status and their manhood. After all, the necktie is a phallic symbol, long and straight and wide. For even when women wear a suit, their neckwear tends to be folded and soft. Their shoulders may be padded to make them look more masculine, but their neckwear is ruffled and fluffy. Now you know why the kids are in RE. But fashion changes. The founding fathers of this country had exclusive male power. They wore wigs and knee pants. This was not sissified because women were not allowed to wear pants at all. In the 19th century, feminist Amelia Bloomer created loose-fitting trousers for women. The fashion of the day was so restrictive that it made females even more weak and immobile, with the tight waists and the bustles padding the hips. With the Bloomers, women were able to be more physical, and physical freedom was a symbol of political freedom. Gender is a complex issue containing at least 4 components: the physical, sexual identity, sexual orientation, and sexual presentation. Physical sex is determined by genitalia. One of the first things a doctor announces is the gender of the baby. It's a boy, it's a girl. But many children have their gender assigned because their genitalia is unclear. The importance of gender in our society is such that there is no tolerance of a third sex. Surgery is performed on the intersexed baby to eliminate any hint of confusion. But all sexual characteristics are on a gradient. Polarities are the extreme. Reality is a bit fuzzier. For instance, men tend to be fuzzier than women. But some women can grow a beard and some men can't. Women tend to be shorter than men, but the women's NBA has many women over 6'6". Men tend to be stronger than women, but some women are stronger than the average man. Some women sing bass, some men sing soprano. The physical differences between the sexes are not mutually exclusive. A thin woman once explained to me why she did not date fat men. She told me, "I refuse to date someone whose breasts are bigger than mine." Sexual identity is a lot less obvious. It is the internal sense of whether one is male or female. It is a psychological thing. Some people feel that they are a woman in a man's body or a man in a woman's body. These are called transsexuals. And the feeling of gender identity is separate from sexual attraction. Madonna once said that she feels like a gay man trapped in a woman's body. And I thought that explained a lot. Sexual orientation is determined by whom you are attracted to. Both men and women are attracted to women, and both men and women are attracted to men, and some women and men are attracted to both women and men. A transvestite is someone who wears the clothes or vestments of the other gender. Some are gay and some are not. This has to do with gender presentation. And this is the most fluid of gender issues. Dressing in drag sends a signal about other things, but these signals are often mixed. Every way that we dress is some sort of drag. Our hair, our clothes, our shoes all tell a story of status, and status is often related to gender. Long hair is considered effeminate, but it is also a symbol of being a hippie. When I have my hair braided and placed on top of my head, I may look matronly. But if I take my braids down, people may think I'm Native American. In the 19th century, General Custer was celebrated for his long, flowing locks of hair. But since World War I, soldiers have worn short hair, and that has become the standard of manliness. And now females that are in the military, and their hair is also cut short. And women who are professional often wear their hair short. Many women remove so-called excess body hair. And this exaggerates the differences between men and women. though the current fashion for men in this country is to be clean-shaven. In fact, money was raised for this church in order for me to shave my beard. And this is a form of drag. Why do American men make their faces more like that of women? It's not true of Mexico, Afghanistan, or Orthodox Jews. Now, between 1860 and 1913, 9 out of 11 presidents had facial hair. The two that didn't was Andrew Johnson, and he was impeached, and William McKinley, and he was shot. Since then, all of our presidents have been clean-shaven. What is our obsession with men in drag? What constitutes drag is arbitrary and shifts with the changing times. The 50s was a time of narrow gender roles. Ward Cleaver wore a suit and tie and went to work. He came home to June Cleaver in her apron and pearls. But some TV pushed the limits. From 1948 to 1956, Milton Berle was Mr. Saturday Night. He often dressed in drag to get a laugh. The idea of a man in women's clothing was a surefire laugh. And then Lucille Ball often disguised herself as a man in the I Love Lucy show. Sex roles were so rigid in the 50s that they had to be hit with a sledgehammer. There was no subtlety in the portrayals of Milton Berle and Lucille Ball, and there really wasn't much of a hint of sexuality. Milton Berle was an extremely ugly woman. And Lucy was a ridiculous man. And there was no hint of homosexuality in their portrayals. But the 50s also spawned a performer that denied his homosexuality but gave us lots of hints. Liberace. I wear spangles in his honor. But then again, the cowboy singers of the 1950s also wore rhinestones. As real cowboys became less a part of American reality, the cowboy outfit became a costume. And by the 70s, the gay dance band, the Village People, featured a singer dressed as a cowboy. Dressing in an overtly hyper-macho style became a signal that one was gay in the late 1970s. Just a few years earlier, in 1969, it was drag queens that took the lead in the gay liberation movement. A gay bar called Stonewall Inn was raided. Now, the majority of the men in the bar were middle-class men in suits and ties. And they may have been able to avoid arrest because they were straight-looking. But the drag queens in the bar could not slink into the night and avoid being noticed. So they revolted and protested. By choosing to dress in drag, they were already more out than their counterparts. They had less to lose and more to fight about. And the Stonewall Revolt happened on the same day that Judy Garland was buried. And she was an icon to drag queens. And one of her most famous routines was dressing up as a male tramp. So the police probably picked the wrong day to raid the Stonewall Inn. The drag queens were in a bad mood and ready to riot. My own history with drag is less dramatic. As a child, my favorite drag artist was Flip Wilson and his alter ego, Geraldine. I used to wear my sister's wig and put sweat socks under my shirt and say, "The devil made me do it." But around the same time, my mother started dressing in drag. Now, up to this point, she would occasionally wear blue jeans if she was cleaning the house, but she always wore a skirt if she left the house. And then one day, she came home from the store triumphant and told my sisters, "I've bought a pantsuit." And indeed she had. It was a one-piece jumpsuit with a zipper. Sort of like Elvis wore, but without the spangles. It was orange. The kind of orange that only existed in the 70s, somewhere between rust and tangerine. It was the color of shag carpets on the floor and the Tupperware that we stored inside our avocado refrigerators. There she was, from neck to ankle, orange, with a gold chain around her waist. Up to this point, she had resembled Edith Bunker. Now suddenly she was Maud. Like the bloomers of a century past, clothes were a sign of liberation. Drag is about liberation. Halloween is about the freedom to be whatever one imagines. Drag is about putting part of your inside on the outside. Men and women share one X chromosome. We are more alike than different. The social pressure to distinguish ourselves from the other gender is obsessive. Why can't we just appreciate the differences that exist between genders and honor all people, no matter where they fall on the continuum? We can also respect who we are. We define what it means to be a man. We define what it means to be a woman. Each of us define it for ourselves. Though this has been a fun sermon, there is some real spiritual questions. Questions that were asked in the first song, "Who am I? And who do I tell people that I am? And where do I belong?" I love going to committee meetings at this church because that's where men wear suits and ties because they're coming in from work. We have a couple men in a suit and tie this morning. I see 3. That wear the drag of the businessman. How we dress, how we present ourselves, reflects who we are, and it has to do with how we belong. I offered an open invitation for people to dress up. A few of you have. But who are you? Of course, all the women wearing pants are dressing in drag. We have no Scotsman in kilt. So I'd like to hear from you. What does it mean, how you dress? What did you see in the mirror when you left this morning? What are you presenting to other people throughout your entire life? And when you encounter someone who is out of the norm, or someone who you might not know, like it's Pat, and you try to figure out who or what somebody is, how does that affect how much you love them?
I'm not going to address any of those questions, but let me ask this question. That orange pantsuit, where was the zipper, in the front or back?
It was in the back. See, that's the back. See, so it was a woman's pantsuit. See, the zipper's in the front so a man can show his chest hair, and therefore show that he's not a woman wearing a pants.
I'm reminded I have a good friend out in the mountains who makes authentic clothing for the Revolutionary period, and he just happened to show me a frontiersman's outfit like Daniel Boone would have worn. Because there were no toilets, because it was cold and you had to hit the wood, Daniel Boone wore leggings with the crotch was open, totally open, and he wore a loincloth, and he just removed that.
That's a man's clothes.
I went to a party last night. There were a lot of dentists at this party. There were probably about 8 dentists at this party. 3 of them had penis noses. I just wondered whether that had anything to do with the open a little wider, please.
Again, we see why the kids are around.
Something is driving me crazy, dear. Yes. Oh, it's distracting. Thank you.
I'm gonna say something. As one of those people who wears a tie occasionally, I really thought maybe Charlie had a bikini underneath that outfit.
Oh, you were expecting the next level, right?
He kept taking things off. But there's so many interesting things that this meeting brings up about your youth and how you grow up. When we were younger, our parents used to go out on Halloween night along with all the kids, and they would dress up more than the kids would. They would dress up for an outfit. When I was in high school, the football team supplied a chorus for all the follies, and we would dress as women. And I want to tell you that they were the ugliest women I've ever seen. So that's why I wear a tie. I want to make sure. I'll tell you a funny story. Being a Republican and being at the last leadership meeting, one of the ladies that's speaking at one of the small groups said, "You know, we have a few Republicans in our fellowship." And everybody went, "Whoo!" Evidently made a difference in those fellows. It doesn't as ours, but Marge Gelman was saying that Arnold owns no ties now, none at all. Well, all my Republican friends say you have to own ties to wear them to church. I said, oh.
Hi, Charlie.
I don't have a tie. I used to wear them all the time as a professional in medicine. Couldn't get anywhere without it. And you always had to have a white coat on.
Okay. Let us prepare for our offering by saying our words of offering. May the gifts we now share be transformed in a community of love, justice, compassion, and hope. And the offertory is I am who I am, I am what I am from La Cage aux Folles.